Economic Forum at the very first Pioneer Global Digital Summit. It's an honor to have all of you amongst us, throwing us your energies so we can celebrate this afternoon, this evening, wherever in the world you are, in togetherness, in sheer radiance of coming together as man, woman, leader, student, wherever we are, we're coming together in energy and celebration. It's an honor for me to welcome you to our conversation. We're in fireside chat with the lovely ladies that I'm going to be welcoming in just a moment. We are unraveling the state of Karnataka, one state, many worlds. I already have the lovely Raja Rajeshwari with me, and I'm going to introduce Raja Rajeshwari to you. She's a part of the sisterhood of the Women Economic Forum, All Ladies League from Bangalore. So part of the soul sisterhood, what we call, a writer, a self-publishing consultant, and a coffee entrepreneur. She's here moderating a conversation about Karnataka, one world, many facets, one state, many worlds, with Sudha Narasimhachar. Is Sudhaji already with us? Raja Rajeshwari?
I think she's trying to. I think she's trying to get into the room. Mansi, she's been waiting for some time. So, thanks for that lovely introduction.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. It's so wonderful to be doing this. I know it's a challenge because we're all kind of working with technology. True. So like I said, this is an opportunity for us to connect from our heart space through our Wi-Fi's.
Absolutely.
So it comes with its challenges, and we're taking that in our stride. But I'm going to take this moment here to throw the baton to you, as for you to just set the tone for this conversation and really engage us with, because I know it's a conversation about the state itself, and you're both Sudhaji as well as you, we're both from a writing, publishing background. So really looking forward to this conversation. But if you could set the tone for this conversation while we wait for Sudhaji, would be wonderful.
Sure, Mansi. Also, just a quick update. She's in the process of connecting right now. There have been some
wonderful.
Technical
She'll be here any moment.
Yeah. And there's an interesting tagline and a very evocative one. The moment when I hear this tagline, and we also know it is, Karnataka State Tourism's tagline, Karnataka, one state, many worlds. Yes. The very line, basically, it's so evocative. It basically brings up so many images, feelings, emotions, and experiences in one's mind.
Yes.
And I should say I'm so excited to be having this fireside chat with Sudha Narasimhachar today. She's a prolific writer and a journalist who is from Bangalore. So I would think pretty much her life experiences along with her work experiences, she should be able to give us a wonderful perspective about what this means to her. One state, many worlds. So excited.
Wonderful. I think
Sudha's here.
Rajeshwari, I'm just going to let you know that we'll have 15 minutes for the conversation. So I'll prompt you 3 minutes before closing time, if that's okay for you.
That would be great, Mansi.
Wonderful.
Thank you
and
so
I think
much.
Sudhaji is already here.
Yes. I think she needs to unmute herself and
deep dive into this fantastic conversation. Yeah.
Yes.
Looking forward to this.
Yes. I'm just trying to reach out to her as we speak.
Yeah, she's on.
Hello.
Welcome, Sudhaji. Welcome.
Hi, Sudha.
So nice to see you here.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy.
Very so lovely to see you, Sudha. So I guess we'll get started, Nancy.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome. Warm welcome to both of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And it is with immense pleasure that I welcome my esteemed speaker, Sudha Narasimhachar, to this virtual fireside chat today. Sudha, as I had mentioned earlier, is a prolific writer, journalist, and a multifaceted personality. She has worked in the Canara Bank for 23 years, then coming out voluntarily. She has been writing continuously for the bank's house magazine, Violent Service, and after quitting, took up freelance journalism seriously. She has written middles, profiles, interviews, features, travelogues, opinion articles, short stories, poems, And many of these articles, stories, poems have been published in various print media like Deccan Herald, the New Indian Express, the Hindu, anthologies and journals, and online magazines like the Weekend Leader, the Village Square, Sulekha, etc. She has published a collection of short stories for children, The Red Monster and Other Evocative Tales, and translated 2 books of Munshi Premchand, a collection of short stories from Hindi to English, through the Unicorn Publishers, New Delhi. She has jointly published 2 books of short stories with other Bangalore-based authors, Many Rooms, Many Voices, and The Tapestry through Catalog Publishers. Most of the articles are about developmental issues, socially relevant institutions, and personalities. Founder trustees of Sahyog, an NGO which assists needy persons to meet their educational and medical expenses and supports hospital organizations working for the downtrodden. And as we mentioned earlier, the theme we'll be exploring with her today is Karnataka, One State, Many Worlds. As we know, it is a Karnataka Tourism Department's tagline, and it's a very evocative line that brings about a blend of images, feelings, emotions in the mind. So Sudha, based on your diverse and unique life experiences, what significance does this line carry for you?
Okay. First of all, I thank the forum for giving me an opportunity to talk to you all. Yeah, this tagline is a wonderful tagline, one state and many worlds. It's so apt for Karnataka because I have spent all my life here, right from my birth, except for 6 years in between. So more than 60 years I've been here, and I've seen how Bangalore, which was a sleepy, slow and quiet town where people used to retire by 9 o'clock in the night, and has turned into a chaotic metropolis today. I've seen the entire metamorphosis, the journey, you know, and of course it has various facets. Change is always inevitable, so we have to accept change. But what it has done to the city, which was once a beautiful garden city, it is now turning into a concrete jungle, as we all know. That hurts the old timers of Bangalore. But otherwise, of course, Bangaloreans and Karnataka in general, they are very hospitable and open to changes and have been welcoming changes as it happens. And the change has been so drastic that it is shocking in certain lives. But even then, we see how people have been accepting changes. As you walk out, as we walked out a few, maybe 30, 35 years ago, we would hear only 4 or 5 South Indian languages other than English and Hindi, of course. But now when we go out, we can hear almost all the languages of India, right from Northeast to the west this side, and from from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. Many people have come to Bangalore like how people used to throng Bombay for their opportunities. Today Bangalore has become one home for that. So we can say the entire country is in Bangalore, but now of late the entire world is in Bangalore. We know how many expats have settled down here, and there are specific schools catering to their children. There are specific events happening for them. So we can say the entire world is encompassed in Bangalore. So what about the state? Of course, the tentacles go on extending, and I can vouch how Mysore is also slowly, changing its original face, and because of the entry of IT industry there, and slowly even the smaller towns like Hubli and Davangere are undergoing changes. But one beautiful thing that I like about Karnataka and Bangalore in specific is that though the change has happened, the old traditions have not been given up. It is very beautiful to see the parallel existence of the most ancient practices and lifestyles and events in every facet. There are things which the old timers can also enjoy, and there are things that the most modern people can enjoy. So the events like Ramanami concerts which our grandfathers and grandmothers enjoyed, happened till today. And on the other side, you can see jam sessions and rock sessions and jazz music, which caters to the younger generation. And there are still many old houses, bungalow type houses, existent in older city parts like Malleshwaram and Baswantgudi, and people there are leading their own quiet lives in the midst of all this chaos, as they used to lead in those days, as much as possible, though their next generation has already transformed and they have left the nests and have settled in various parts of the world, and they keep coming now and then. And people from Karnataka also have become great travelers. Wherever you travel in the world, you'll find a bunch of Kannadigas, definitely. So they have now, caught on to that travel mode, and they enjoy, they admire, they appreciate various cultures while holding on to their traditions also. So you can see this drastic things happening during the festival season. You can go to Gandhi Bazaar or Malleshwaram markets, and you'll find how people throng to buy flowers and fruits and all the festive items. And the Dashara festival, which is the icon of Karnataka, and which reminds us of our days of Maharaja. And people still, they have the tradition of worshipping the wooden dolls. A couple, they consider them as the Maharaja and Maharani, and they worship that. Even today in marriages, these dolls are given away, daughter-in-law or daughter, though she might be living in San Francisco or Australia or wherever. So this tradition has not been given up. And the Maharaja's family also, the royal family,
The screen is frozen.
Yeah, I think Sudhaji dropped out. That's okay.
Yeah. That was a wonderful perspective that Sudha brought about. And one more thing I think I wanted to explore with her once she gets back online is, what is it about Karnataka that makes it so special? How is it able to, blend and bring together and embrace the historical and the modern?
Beautiful.
So many
I think
diverse
that's a very pertinent question. I think Sudhaji would be the perfect.
You're back. There was another question which I wanted to put to you, is the wonderful perspective that you have been giving. I think you're on mute, Sudha. You're on mute. You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you're on now. So that was an excellent perspective.
Rajeshwari, I also just quickly interrupt. Sorry. We have about a minute to close, if that's okay.
Wonderful. Yes.
Thank you.
Just about a minute. So I think
closing remarks from Sudhaji would be wonderful on the state of Karnataka.
Yes. So what is it about Karnataka that makes it so special in terms of, blending in and bringing together, embracing the historical and the modern, and bringing in so many diverse cultures together? I guess Sudha's offline again.
Yes, I think we lost her again. It's okay. I think we'll have the opportunity to reach out to her. I think, Raja Rajeshwari, I have an idea. Why don't you give us your perspective on that beautiful question to close? I think it's a wonderful question, and I think something that really needs to be highlighted. So
sure, Mansi. So let me just start with very quickly with the geographical aspect. The topography, the terrain of Karnataka itself, I think, is like very unique.
Yes.
And it's so diverse. You have the sea on one side, you have the Western Ghats on the other, and so many different climatic factors and terrain that again brings together, so conducive for so many, to embrace so many folks. That is from the geographical aspect. And then from the socio-economic aspect also, I think Sudha already gave a very excellent perspective. Yes. And similarly, we have both the heritage sites coexisting with the modern, and that is special attention and care to ensure that the old world charm is also retained all over Karnataka. And I think that again adds to that blending. And the other aspect is the hospitality and being able to embrace cultures from all over the world in the state. That, and one special thing before I would like to, before we can close, is the way Karnataka fosters creativity. We have so many artists, renowned artists who have basically emerged from Karnataka, be it from Arvind Adiga, R.K. Narayan, U.R. Anantamurthy, Girish Karnad, and so many more. If you would like to add on, Sudha, like we can basically close with your statement on what makes Karnataka special and what is Karnataka's takeaway learnings to the world.
Yeah, Karnataka's takeaway, I can say, is their openness to changes, which is very important, because if the older generation hold on to their traditions and are not ready to change, then things will not work this way. So we can see how much, and even geographically, Karnataka is so vibrant. It has all the varieties. We have oceans, we have rivers, we have mountains, we have forests. So, and people-wise, economically also, we have all categories of people, and there are eateries to cater to the lowest, the poorest person to the richest person who has traveled around the world. We have cuisines. So a poor man can get meals for 10 rupees or 20 rupees. At the same time, a rich man who would want a very good ambience has a variety of choices from around the world. So inside homes also, there are, you can say, there's a mini world, because inter-regional marriages happened in the last generation, in my generation. So the present generation has gone beyond, and there are marriages happening, international marriages, and they are welcomed into the family, and they all live so harmoniously, even though they may not be living under one roof. They may be in different countries, but you can see so this is the takeaway from Karnataka. We are not sticking on to our practices which might act as impediment to growth and progress. We are always welcoming. That is no wonder so many companies come to Bangalore, and its beautiful weather, which is not available anywhere under the sun. Anywhere I travel, I want to come back to Bangalore and to my hometown.
What an enriching conversation.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It's it's been so inviting. We all feel like just sort of dropping ourselves from the sky into like beautiful Bangalore right now. Your weather, your people, the stories you share, and like you said, Raja Rajeshwari, like the beautiful. I think Karnataka really is the epitome of the blend of the ancient, the spiritual, and the modern. So really embracing the past and the present, and bringing it into the future. So thank you so much, ladies, and for the work you've done, for the message that you've brought to us. We'd like to present you a small token of our affection and honor you with an award on behalf of the Ladies League, with the award of Iconic Women Creating a Better World for All. Please, audiences, join us in bringing this virtual award to Sudhaji and to Raja Rajeshwari ji for the enlightening work that they've done through their careers and for the women that they are. Really, it's an honor to have you amidst us, and thank you for that beautiful, very inviting conversation to Karnataka.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sudhaji. Thank you, Raja Rajeshwari.
Thank you, Sudha, and thank you.
Thank you.
The whole world literally is in lockdown conditions in Bangalore.
Without further ado, we're rolling. That's how we roll. If you're familiar with the pace with which we roll, we keep taking it a notch up, right? So we are at the plenary 2 of day 1 of the Women Economic Forum, of the very first Global Digital Summit at the Women Economic Forum, really revisiting, reclaiming the way our tomorrow is, the way we're going forward. So embracing, rebooting, resetting the tone for the way we work, the way we function, and really giving humanity the energy, a new flavor for how we need to go forward. And it's an absolute honor for me to welcome our speakers for the next session. It's a very enlightening, another enlightening fireside with someone who's much respected, much loved amongst the Women Economic Forum, ladies, as well as in the world, as well as in the legal world, a leading law expert with a lifetime of experience in law, someone who's held positions of eminent power, someone who's been the president of the Bar Association of India, president of the Society of Indian Law Firms. Please join me in welcoming the one and only law aficionado, Dr. Lalit Bhasin. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our moment to bring our hearts and hands together for this beautiful moment. Please allow me to welcome in conversation with Dr. Lalit Bhasin, Kriti Sharma, who is a legal strategy. Hi, Kriti. It's an honor to see you here.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Very well, sir. Very well. It's so nice to see you on this digital platform. Thank you for your support always to the Women Economic Forum. Thank you for your precious time and for your generosity. I'm going to hand the baton to the lovely Kriti.
Yeah.
Kriti, are you coming in from Mumbai?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. Like celebrating technology, celebrating humanity right in this afternoon. Over to you, Kriti.
Thank you so much, Mansi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sudhaji. Hello, Lalit sir. It's an absolute honor to have you here.
It's a pleasure, Kriti.
So just to give everybody a quick introduction about you, Dr. Lalit Bhasin, everyone knows you, like you really don't need an introduction and you are not new to the web forum, but I would still like the audience to know more about you. So you are the managing partner of Bhasin and Company and the president of the Society of Indian Law Firms, SILF, which we talked about yesterday, and the Bar Association of India, which in itself is such a prestigious title to hold. And I understand 58 years in law, right, sir?
That's right.
So I think I have just seen the tip of the iceberg, and we are so honored and so privileged that you are here today to talk to us. And just to get an idea, sir, please tell us a little about the organizations you're associated with. Let's begin from there, and then we'll get deeper into more insights, please.
Thank you, Kriti, for that wonderful, very gracious introduction. And thanks to Mansi also. But you yourself, you see, are a celebrity, Kriti. You have done your MSc Law and Finance from the University of Oxford. You have a brilliant career to boast of so far as legal profession is concerned. You have been, you have helped the international startups on legal and funding matters. And you have worked with the topmost, one of the topmost law firms of India, Khaitan and Company, and one of the most recognized international law firm, Baker and McKenzie. So you also come, you see, with it's a great privilege for me that you are moderating this session.
It's an honor, absolute honor.
Absolute delight to share this with you. Yes, I started my law practice way back in 1962, when I think most of you were not born. And I had a life of some struggle, but everything stabilized in mid-70s. That is when I started my law firm, Bhasin and Company, and it has offices in Delhi and Bombay. But then I was more into giving back to the society right from the beginning, you see, and I took an active part so far as the Bar Association of India is concerned, starting at the right at the bottom, you see, of being a assistant treasurer of the association. And simultaneously, I was involved with the International Bar Association right from 1980s. And I was, as I told you, it's a means of giving back to the society. I was soon chairing, you see, their Human Rights Committee of the International Bar Association, which was a very prestigious appointment, but also an appointment which showed that the International Bar had great confidence that we'll be able to contribute something for human rights, you see, and human rights particularly for the underprivileged and also for women and children, protection of their human rights all over the world, not just in India.
Wonderful.
And then I was also chairing, you see, the Legal Aid Committee, because the idea was that justice should be brought to the doorsteps of people, at least those who can't afford to go to the courts. So that is what we tried. And in the Bar Association of India, I became the General Secretary in 1990 and held that position for about 20 years till 2010 under the presidency of one of the most eminent lawyers, you see, of India, Mr. Fali Nariman. So he and I worked as a team to strengthen the rule of law in this country, to promote and protect the interest, you see, of the minorities, of the weaker sections of the society, and women and children and elderly people, those who need, you see, some sort of legal support. It was in 2010 that I took the initiative of starting what is now called the Society of Indian Law Firms.
This is very interesting, sir. I'm sure a lot of audiences would want to know more about this because we talked about it yesterday.
Yeah, Society of Indian Law Firms is a unique society, I would say unique in the world, because it consists only of the law firms. And I'm very happy to say that we have about 120 top law firms of the country who are members of the Society of the Law Firms. We are business lawyers, and we advise corporates, including multinational companies. But at the same time, we realize, you see, the need to have good professional social responsibility.
Absolutely.
Yes, that is very important. Therefore, most of our law firms, they contribute very significantly in terms of their time, attention, and effort to provide legal aid, legal advice, help to all those needy sections of the society. Right. Of course, on the other side, we advise the government of India, we advise, you see, the parliament on what type of laws should be framed, what type of laws should be removed, because we have old laws, we have overlapping laws, we have laws.
Therefore, and the times are changing.
Yeah, times are changing. There is a need to rationalize the laws. Therefore, the SILF, you know, that is Society of Indian Law Firms, it represents a unique blend, brilliant think tank, which is available in this country on any matter concerning law, particularly finance, economic, any law pertaining to growth of economy and commercial and financial matters. Therefore, so SILF is playing a very important role. The other organization which I am chairing at the moment is the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators.
That's something I want to talk to you about, sir. So please go ahead and I'll ask the questions.
Chartered Institute of Arbitrators has its headquarters in London, but it has got branches all over the world. And I happen to chair, you see, the India branch. And the mandate of Chartered Institute of Arbitrator is to promote alternate dispute resolution, particularly arbitration, and which is required mostly, you see, in developing countries and also in developed countries, in disputes between corporates of different countries, even bilateral disputes between the countries also. Therefore, that is a very important organization, and we don't try to promote arbitration. What we do is we train the arbitrators.
This is what we need. This is the need of the hour.
Need of the hour is to train arbitrators, have good arbitrators to decide. But what I have been trying to do in my position as chairman is not just arbitration, because arbitration as yet has failed to take off in India because of so many other factors, including that we don't have trained arbitrators. Therefore, we have to rely upon only judges, and judges, you know.
True.
The judges are monopolizing, you see, the arbitration scene. That is why arbitration has become, you see, very expensive also. It has become very prolonged also, almost as prolonged as litigation. Therefore, the effort is now mediation. And that is where I feel that our women lawyers, you see, they have a great role to play, because they don't need any training to mediate, you know. They're such that everywhere they are trying to bring in harmony.
Absolutely. We are hardwired for it.
Yeah. So whether it is a domestic front, whether it is workplaces, you see, where they work, they create that sort of an environment. And I think by very nature of things, people have more faith in lady mediators than, you see, they have in the men mediators, because they have some firm conviction that their problem will be well understood, and they respect, you see, the views. So my attempt is also to rope in eminent lady lawyers, eminent sociologists, not just the lawyers, you see, because eminent professionals from other spheres also, not just judges, lawyers and all. I don't want mediation to be cornered, you see, by a legal profession. People also, chartered accountants, you see, and there are engineers. Everyone should come in. And
absolutely. It should be, if I may, sir, I think it should be customized as per the matter which is in dispute. So every mediator should have a specialization, or, you know, a mindset. The approach should be to understand what the dispute is, to mediate it.
Absolutely right. And that is why we need also trained mediators.
Right.
Therefore, those who are, you see, willing to go in for mediation, they should get proper training. And that is where the role of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators comes in. Training, you see, the future mediators, the future arbitrators, so that we can give some meaning to alternate dispute resolution. Otherwise, people are trying to find alternatives to the alternate dispute resolution.
Yes, I know what you mean. I exactly know what you mean, sir. Now that, sir, you are talking about mediation, I want to divert the topic a little towards consultancy, because, you know, lawyers like me, or aspiring entrepreneurs, are looking at consultancy and, you know, growing their businesses. So is there anything through your experience and through how you have molded your own career, is there anything which you can tell the audience and we can take away?
Yeah, I think that's a very relevant question, and which gives me an opportunity to share my perspective as to what I believe can be a very successful formula for professionals to gain confidence of their clients. But it is like a long-term strategy. And that strategy is, which is summed up in one slogan, you know, which has been coined in London: a bad settlement is better than successful litigation. Therefore, in the field of consultancy, in the field of your advisory work, where you are advising, you see, the clients, the need is first to emphasize on the client the need to settle the dispute.
Absolutely.
How
Yeah.
to settle it, that will come later. But first, that mindset has to be created that you can go for litigation. It is good for lawyers, but it is not good, you see, for the economy of the country, for the future of the country, if everyone is litigating or arbitrating on that. Therefore, the need is settlement, 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 and settlement can be done by the lawyers also, those who are being consulted by the clients. Therefore, if two sets of lawyers, one representing one set, you see, one interest, other representing the other interest, they try to resolve the matter, I think that would be the quickest solution and a great contribution, that try to settle your dispute. Settlement should be a slogan for everyone, including the consultants, you see, who are, because the clients rely very heavily, as by very nature of things, they rely on the advice of the consultant. That is why they come and consult you.
Right, sir. So
Despite,
yeah, yeah, please go ahead.
no,
I'll then tell you what I think
no,
about
yeah,
that.
tell me, yeah.
So, sir, given the experience which I have had with my clients, I generally do not refer myself as a lawyer. So, as an in-house counsel or as an external counsel, we are referred as support functions, or we are not the main stakeholders. So I call myself as a consultant a business enabler. The idea is to enable the business, not to create complications or stress. And as you rightly said, settlement is how it should be. That's the basis on which we'll be able to mold the business right and to carve out the right path to do the business right.
Yes, that is very important, and particularly the type of role that you see you have been performing as a consultant, you see, to various corporates and to various organizations. The need is to have a complete, not complete, but yes, satisfactory knowledge of what is contemporaneously happening in the world, because these days it is not the geographical barriers which count. You must know, for instance, an Indian lawyer or an Indian consultant must know what is happening in the United States, what is happening in the
Very
European
true, very
Union,
true.
what is happening in Japan, and you see Singapore and other places. Therefore, that knowledge, that cooperation between the professionals in various regions, of coming together, that is very important. That is where events, you see, like the conferences which are organized by the International Bar Association, and we in India, we organize events with the Bar Association of India and Society of Indian Law Firm, where you see all our foreign colleagues are invited to participate. That is a good exchange of ideas, good exchange of
Yes.
information as to what is contemporaneously happening on issues. And issues are common. It is economic development, how to
Yes, a problem is a problem.
that's right, yeah,
Anywhere in the world.
anywhere, yes. So that is where you see your role becomes so significant and important, and you have the added advantage of not just being a lawyer but also a specialist, even so far the startups are concerned, and how they should be funded and how funds can be provided to them, and they should be encouraged. That is the need of the hour, because startups are the future, not just for India, I think everywhere. And that is where people like you can play a very significant and important role.
Following your footsteps, sir. So, thank you, sir. I think the key takeaways from whatever you have told, as far as the arbitration and different networking platforms are concerned, especially for people who are aspiring to be better, to be setting up their own firm or consultancy, or to join a firm. I think it's very important that we understand business structures, and we understand that there is a need for people like us who are support functions to create that enabling platform for businesses to function right, instead of making it complicated or trying to scare the client. So that's how I see it. And so I know that the time is
No,
a tragedy right now, but
I just want to share with you one thought, you see, that
sure.
thinking about the legal profession, I think it offers a great opportunity, as you know, because you are a lawyer, to our young ladies who want to join this profession. The openings are there. Although
Yes,
these are very difficult times, the present COVID crisis that has, you see, added to the responsibilities of the ladies. They have to look after home, they have to look after their work, and they have to look after, you see, the children and all that. But the opportunities, there are opportunities galore. Whether you want to be a transactional lawyer, corporate lawyer, or a litigation lawyer. And we see the ladies climbing up the ladder and becoming like additional solicitor generals, the advocate generals, and even now judges of
right,
the
sir.
high courts and
Yes,
the Supreme Court of India. Therefore, the message is yes, please join the mainstream of the profession. You are already a part of it, but take it to its glory, you see, by your active participation in the profession. Thank you.
that's amazing. Thank you for the golden words, sir. Absolute pleasure talking to you, and I really look forward to meeting you someday.
Sure, sure. Definitely.
Over to
Thank you
Thank
so
Mansi.
much. Thank you. Thank you, Kriti.
you.
Thank you so much, Lalit sir. It's an honor every time listening to you. Really, it almost gives me goosebumps because it amazes me and, you know, all the sisters here that with the generosity that you share your wisdom, you deliver, you inspire your message. It's inspiring. Thank you so much for always opening your hearts to, you know, the sisters at the Women Economic Forum and the world in general. Thank you, sir. You are an iconic legacy unto yourself. Thank you. And in honor of your lifetime achievement and the work that you have done, we'd like to present you a small, tiny token of our love on behalf of the All Ladies League at the Women Economic Forum, at the virtual Women Economic Forum, the very first one, to present you an award in recognition of you as a leader of the decade in law and legal change. Please, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together, your hearts together as we present Dr. Lalit Bhasin with this award on behalf of the All Ladies League. It's a virtual award. This is the very first time we're doing this. So, sir, the award will be in your mailbox, in your email very, very soon. Thank you so much for your time. Also, in the same breath, I'd like to present an award to Kriti Sharma, also like Dr. Bhasin said, you know, a celebrity lawyer in her own right, carving her way into the, you know, into the present as well as the future. It's, you know, it's fantastic to see, you know, people like you really going into the mainstream and inspiring so many others on your path. So thank you for inspiring women in equal proportion. So thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We'd like to present you an award to acknowledge you as an iconic woman creating a better world for all on behalf of the All Ladies League at the Digital Women Economic Forum in Bangalore. We
Thank you so much.
congratulate you. Thank you, both of you,
an
for
honor.
inspiring us this afternoon. Thank you. Thank you for your presence, for your words. Thank you.
Thank you, Mansi.
Pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll catch you another time. Thank you, Mansi. Have a great
Yes.
day.
देखा हमने देखा।
अच्छा